Welcome back to an episode of Spiritually Unfiltered.
Yes, we're so excited about today's episode because it's going to be all about how to navigate through breakups and not necessarily through romantic breakups, but sometimes we have friendship breakups, sometimes we have business breakups. And we're going to talk about how to navigate through all of that because one thing that Abby and I have both seen is that many times, many of our clients get extremely stuck in navigating through these things. And it's very easy. Our emotions get involved. And so we start seeing the negative of all of it. We're so hurt. And we tend to use an unhealthy side of our ego to then show up to protect ourselves, not always recognizing how these breakups are beautiful, beautiful divine orchestrations for us to help us to grow in life. And there's so much beauty in these quote unquote breakups. And so today we want to talk all about how to navigate through it and really the importance of it, because I think a lot of times people, as they, let's say, lose friends or have businesses that didn't go well with a partner or relationships that go downhill, sometimes people tend to be like, you know what? I don't want a relationship. I don't want a business partner, or they distance themselves from friends because of the hurt that happened from that separation. And so I think talking about how there's so much beauty in it, giving a different perspective, a different lens, a very beautiful spiritual perspective to all of these things. Hopefully, it will help all of you in navigating through any future separations, current separations, or sometimes there's still past breakups that we have not processed
Yeah,
through. And it's because we just have not received the beauty and the gift of that experience. So that's what this episode is going to be all about. Abby,
amazing.
you
Mhm.
tell us when we talk about like relationships, what is it that comes to your mind and the beauty of these things when we just talk about relationships in general?
Yeah, so I mean, I think relationships in general, it is such a huge pillar in all of our lives, and
Hmm.
I actually think, especially when it comes to breakdowns of relationships, but also inside or any relationship that we have, it can be a spiritual tool to just get to know yourself deeper. So I've said this so many times before, but relationships, it is integration of the work that you're doing.
Yes.
There's only so much work that we can do in isolation. And
Hmm.
I think relationships are where that comes online, where we get to use that, where we get to actually see, okay, like where am I at with myself?
Yes.
And I think what's really important here is when it comes to relationships, like you said, we're not just talking about romantic relationships, we're talking about any kind of relationship. Often, the romantic relationship, it gets sort of put higher up, or, there's more focus on the romantic relationship. And the reason for that is because it is a more intense
Hmm.
part of the work.
Yeah.
It's more amplified in a romantic relationship because maybe you see them more often, you talk to them more often, you
Well,
spend more time
I
together.
think the physical intimacy also brings
Also, yeah.
out the physical intimacy itself brings out a lot of our emotional shadows and
Mm,
such. And so there's such a sacred space in these romantic relationships.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, for
I
sure.
absolutely agree with everything you're saying that relationships are like the ultimate initiation. When we want
Mm,
to grow in a certain way and evolve, it's really through relationships that it becomes the initiation. And I loved one thing specific that you said. You said it's about relationships help you get to know yourself. And I think one thing both you and I can agree on is that the most important relationship we have here is the relationship to ourselves.
mm,
And there's only so much of the relationship to ourself we could work on by ourselves, and then the rest starts happening in relation to other people.
mm,
And so I think it's so beautiful when we recognize that these relationships to other people are really about our own evolution, our emotional and personal evolution, and really our souls are here to evolve. Everything we're here to experience is to have our souls evolve, and relationships are just a beautiful, beautiful way to do that. And so
Hmm.
let's talk more about the gifts and the beauty that come through when relationships come to an end, so that we can kind of support people in navigating out of that heartbreak and thinking like it's so terrible and it's so hard, to honoring that feeling in them, but also understanding there's a greater purpose so that they could really receive the wisdom that's in these situations. Is there
Yeah.
like a specific example in your life that comes up for you that you'd want to share with everyone?
Oh, yeah. Like, I feel like I have a couple of these actually in
Okay, give us
different
a good one.
ways. Okay, well, I think my first really important relationship,
Mm-hmm.
that romantic relationship, was it ended when I was 25. And I, gosh, it's like a long story to go into this relationship with this guy, but it was when I was traveling. It's like we're picking up on from my podcast, from my episode on the
Oh, right.
podcast. I was traveling around Asia and I met this Finnish guy. And really, I mean, when I first met him, I didn't like him at all. Like, I was like, who is this guy, you know? And anyway, fast forward, I ended up moving to Finland. I moved to Finland. I got a job. We were together for like a year and a half or whatever. And then we broke up. And I learned so much about myself in that breakup.
Mhm.
I learned who I had been in that relationship because actually I kind of learned that I wasn't whole in myself before I got into that relationship. I think I was kind of navigating some of my own things beforehand.
Yeah.
And then this relationship came along, and I was like, okay, like this is my answer to everything. And I got into this relationship, like so many of us do, and thinking, this relationship was my answer to everything. And, I just fell in like deep love with this person. And literally, they became sort of like, I feel like I almost like treated them better than I treated myself, you know? And when that ended, it was like, I mean, I think breakups in general, they can sometimes feel like death,
Yeah.
because it's almost like this person that you lived with and that you were around all the time, all of a sudden, you can't even pick up the phone to them.
Yeah.
Everybody has this way of closing a relationship. I remember my brother saying to me, just block his number, delete him, like forget that he ever existed, and, just go cold turkey. I remember my brothers really drilling that into me, and I just felt like I was in grief. I was in shock. So after that, I remember like I flew back to the UK and I quit my job, everything like in Finland, went home to England, and I was just like, I couldn't get out of bed. It was just like, I was so like, I don't want to use the word depressed, but I was grieving
Yeah.
deeply. I felt like I
What
was.
was what was the most painful part of the breakup? Obviously, when we break up with someone, it is sad,
Mm,
but emotionally, what was it like? What shadows was it reflecting to you that you feel like was making it so
mm.
difficult for you to navigate through it?
Wow, that is a really good question. And it's even like a question. I don't know if I've even asked myself that question before.
Okay.
Wow.
Maybe there's some wisdom left in that relationship, left in that
There's,
breakup that you're meant to receive.
yeah, yeah. I think one of the things that really sticks out to me, and he really reflected who I was before we really intertwined,
Mhm.
before the relationship became really entangled and I lost myself in this person, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because when I got to Finland, I came from Asia, I got to Finland, I literally had like no money. And this guy was telling me it's going to be really hard for you to get a job. And I got a job in like a week. I got like a great job in a school, like I was set. And he was like, I can't believe this. This is crazy. At like when he broke up with me, I remember sitting there and he said something to me and it just like hurt me to my core because I've always been this kind of person. He said to me, you know, where is the person that I met? The person I met, she was so ambitious. She came and she knew what she wanted and she made it happen. Where did she go? This is something he said to me. And I remember feeling like I knew that as well. I knew that had happened. But having someone say it to you, it just burned, it just
Slap in the
really,
face.
it was like a slap in the face. And I remember saying, imagine thinking like the worst things about yourself and the person you love the most tells it to you,
Mm-hmm.
says it back to you.
It's
But
the most
actually,
painful yet
yeah,
most perfect experience to have.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because what happened after that is this is something I don't compromise in my life anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that I love about myself.
Yeah.
And, from that, because, he was making all these plans. Oh, I want to do this, I want to do that. And I was literally just saying, I'll come along. I can come too.
Mm-hmm.
It was always this. And from then, I've never compromised that. I've never lost myself in someone else.
I love that you're saying this because there's one of two ways we can take a breakup like this. It's
Yeah.
he broke my heart, he abandoned me. I gave so much of my life to him. I was so supportive of him. I was there for him for everything, X, Y, and Z, and all those things, and played like this complete victim post the breakup, which a lot of us have done, which is also completely okay. And so
Yeah.
that's one way to navigate it. But you navigated it in a way of like, okay, this really hurts and I am really sad, but let me look at what this is teaching me. And what this relationship was really reflecting to you was that you do have this subconscious habit of sacrificing yourself in relationships,
Mhm.
which I think so many of us, especially
Yeah.
as women, not to say men don't
Yeah.
do this, but especially as women, it's more in our collective consciousness. We just subconsciously go into a relationship and sacrifice ourselves. And we sacrifice ourselves and then thinking like, oh, he's going to love me so much because I'm doing this. But then when the
Yes.
breakup happens, we get so hurt, not realizing the breakup is like divine intervention to have you wake up and see the things that you are doing that is not loving to yourself.
Mm.
Breakups are always reflecting that to us because when we think about any types of relationships, it's to share love with someone, right? Like, I
Exactly.
love you
Hmm.
so much as a friend, as a this, as a that. It's to share love. And so I
Hmm.
think relationships really reflect to us where we are not giving that love to ourselves, and it becomes the
Mm.
perfect mirror. And sometimes it's a painful mirror, but when
Yeah.
we can recognize that, it truly gives us so much. And then we grow and we evolve into even better and stronger versions of
Mm.
ourselves. Because, I think the gist of all of the stuff that we're doing here, Abby, in our coaching and in this podcast and everything, is to support people in being like the most grounded, confident, in tune version of themselves so they can be authentic and loving and have these beautiful lives. And it's like a part of this process and how we get to know ourselves that then develops this sense of confidence and self-esteem with ourselves is actually through these hard parts. It needs to
Yeah.
reflect these shadow parts of ourselves that we're not recognizing. And sometimes we know that we're being like this, but we don't want to work on it. So then we get into a relationship and then the relationship comes crashing down. So it reflects it to us. And
Mhm.
sometimes it's so subconscious, we don't realize that it's there. And then this friendship breakup, romantic breakup happens, but it's
Mhm.
reflecting that to us.
Mhm. And it's kind of like sometimes, and I think we've all been there. because I was so unhappy in this relationship
Yeah.
towards the end of it. I remember I was getting like cold sores on my face all the time. I was just getting it all the time. And I remember afterwards thinking it's because like my literally my energetic body does not want to kiss this person,
Yeah.
you know? And I think we can ignore those warning signals and signs so much because it's more comfortable for us to be in the relationship
Yes.
than to deal with ourselves
Mm-hmm.
or meet ourselves
Mm-hmm.
afterwards.
Yeah. This is, I think breakups are the ultimate strength training of our personal selves. They
Mm,
are so important. The hurts that come from them are so good. It's almost like when you go to the gym and you lift weights and it hurts, but it hurts so good. I think once we start viewing the hurt that comes from breakups and we allow ourselves to feel it and truly honor how we feel it, but not to make ourselves the victim of the situation, but to see the gifts in it, we grow so much. I'll give a personal example, and it's something you and
mm,
I have
mm,
spoken about recently in one of my friendship breakups. I went through a friendship breakup with a friend who accused me of being someone that I'm not.
mm,
And of course, it really hurt to have someone view me in this way without even allowing me to explain myself. It was kind of an assumption they had, and they ran with the assumption, and then they, in their own head, validated the assumption. And it's like, okay, you can think what you want from me, and that's fine.
mm.
And as I
It's like they
sat,
created a story in
yeah,
their perception.
yeah, and whenever we create a story about anyone or anything, we have a confirmation bias. So we're going to view everything around
Mm.
us in a way to validate the story we had, which is
Yeah.
what she did, and that's fine because I was never told that she was feeling this way for me to explain or anything like that. But
Hmm.
one thing I noticed, as I was, of course, feeling hurt by this and almost blindsided by this, one thing I noticed that it was bringing up for me, and the pain was bringing this up for me, because I could have gone into defense mode and be like, well, screw her. I don't need friends like this, and all of those things where, like, our egos do that in order to protect us, of course. But
Mm,
as I allowed myself to really sit with the pain, I realized there was a deep part of me that was suppressed many, many, many years ago by high school friends, by high school girlfriends that would judge this aspect of me. And I
right.
realized she was judging that same aspect of me that I actually love about myself. It
Mm,
was a part of me that had been suppressed for so long that was like being born again. And
mm,
she judged it and decided to label me certain things because of it, and then decided to defriend me because of it.
mm.
And as I sat with it, I was like, wait, this is so beautiful. This is a part of myself that was suppressed back in my teenage years. I wasn't aware that I had this narrative around it that I accepted from other friends.
Mm,
And she reflected that to me, and I was like, no, I don't I don't receive your projection of this,
mm,
because this is a part of me that I love. This is
mm.
a part of me that I see so much strength and beauty in. So, no,
Yeah.
I will not change because you don't like it. And so,
Mm,
as I allowed myself to sit with the pains of this, is where I really received the gift that this had for me. And I realized in that moment, I needed to have that pain. The pain kind of like cracks things open. I
yeah.
needed to have that pain to see this beautiful part of myself that was
Hmm.
missing. And now I get to claim it, very much like you claimed an aspect of yourself after that breakup. And you're like,
Yeah.
I'm never settling for that stuff again. I'm never sacrificing myself in relationships again. And so
Mm,
you come out stronger, more in tune with yourself, more
yeah.
secure with yourself. So many people are looking for security with themselves. And I'm like, if only you could recognize that these breakups are actually trying to make you more secure with yourself.
Yeah. Trying to push you back again. It's like a spiritual tool to get to know
Yes,
yourself on a deeper level. You're
yes,
seeing yourself because it's almost like when we're in relationships, and I would say, like, yeah, especially romantic relationships, it's almost like on an unconscious level that we do certain things,
yes,
or react or act because it's everything's so in the moment when
yeah,
you're so intertwined with someone. And yeah, I think I think what is interesting about this conversation is more often than not, when people do come out of relationships, they focus on why did I do that? What is it about me that I acted in this way, or
Hmm.
drove them away, or why did they abandon me? Or,
Hmm.
it's that kind of narrative of I'm the problem.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And it's kind of like, I think what you're saying and what my example is showing as well is actually it's really just trying to get you to see yourself in a different level, see
Yeah.
yourself, allow some of your magic to kind of come to the surface, for you to
Yeah.
remember yourself, come back to yourself.
That, to remember
That.
yourself and come back to yourself. And I think too many people, especially like very people who are actually very well intentioned and have kind hearts, will tend to turn around and be like, I'm the problem. I did something wrong. And there's an aspect of that that's important because we do get to take accountability if and when we did do something wrong. And there's importance in asking ourselves that question to be able to take accountability. But just because someone thinks we did something wrong doesn't mean we actually did.
Hmm.
Because in their perspective, it's wrong, but in your perspective, it's not. And in your experience, it's not. So we don't always have to make ourselves wrong because someone else in a relationship is projecting their own insecurities or their own lack towards you. And in these ways, it's like we can kind of recognize, what is this showing me about myself? How is this bringing me home to myself? Because even if it is something that we recognized we did wrong, even that is bringing us home to ourselves. Even that is making us stronger and better. And I
Yeah,
think that's the
exactly.
most important part, is realizing all of these separations are actually serving your greatest good, and it's reflecting so much of your beauty that's been hidden inside of yourself. And sometimes it's reflected through your shadows and you're like, ooh, maybe I don't want to be this type of person. This is showing me to be better.
Right,
And
right.
many times, relationships come into our lives, friendships, romantic, whatever, to actually bring out beautiful parts of ourselves. Because
Hmm.
I see people who go through any type of breakup and they're so sad and they're so devastated. And I know I've experienced this myself as well, because they're
Same.
like, I felt like this amazing part of myself was able to come out with this person. The way I experienced myself was so amazing. I felt seen, I felt heard, like I liked who I was in relation to this person. And then that
Hmm.
breakup happens and they're devastated because they
Hmm.
think that that part of them also has to leave with that person. And I think the
Right.
most beautiful thing we get to recognize is, no, that person came into your life to be a flashlight for you, to bring
Yeah.
out that aspect of you so that you can embody that part of you. That was their job. And then when
Mm,
they leave, that version of you is your parting gift. You get to keep
mm,
that.
mm-hmm.
They were just a
Exactly.
flashlight. That's it. And you get to keep that
Exactly.
good part of yourself.
As well, this reminds me of, so my most recent, ex-boyfriend, which
Mm-hmm.
was like 5 years ago now. And I feel like he came into my life to show me the kind of person that matches me. I feel like my first, long-term relationship was, my sort of initiation into a relationship with, like a romantic relationship, and
Mm-hmm.
living with someone and all that goes with it. And I learned it was like a full journey in itself. But this second relationship, it was different, and he could not have been any more different from my first relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, like showing that flashlight, because he did everything right. He the way that he presented himself, he was, a gentleman. I would never pay for anything. He was, very like chivalrous. Like he would buy me little gifts. Like he did all of the right things. Emotionally, that was a different story, but like he
Hmm.
did, all of the kind of husband material things.
Uh-huh.
He really showed me that sort of archetype or that sort of energy that I know is what is for me.
Yeah.
And I remember we broke up and we broke up because of this. He couldn't have this emotional connection, like he couldn't open up emotionally. And so anyway, like, we kept in touch for like a year after we broke up and we were literally separated by COVID. We were living in the same city and then I was out of China and COVID happened, all the borders shut. I never seen him again. It was like a full divine intervention.
Intervention.
Oh my gosh. But I was curious a few months ago, and we met through a mutual friend, so someone I was friends with, and they're not someone I speak to all the time, but she will often send me like a birthday message or something, and she did so this year. And just out of curiosity, I asked her, it'd been like 5 years. I was like, how's he doing? And she told me he's good. He's actually married now. And I remember being really happy to hear that
Hmm.
because I literally thought to myself, he was exactly who I thought he was, And so he actually did come in to show me that energy, to, you almost like show me that that connection is there, like that.
You know, one thing I've realized, sometimes people come along in our lives to reflect to us an aspect of how we would like to feel in a relationship, so
Yeah.
that once we have that experience, because you got to experience something different, especially in your feminine, in that relationship with him. So now you get to keep that experience and then take that, embody that, and then add to that the emotional element that was missing from this relationship. And I think and I think people get so stuck in what they lost that they don't realize all that they actually gained. And I think
Yeah.
that's the biggest thing. Like, breakups of any sort are not actually a loss, they're a gain of a lot of things. And if that person was meant to be in your life still, they would have, but it ran its course. They gave you everything they were supposed to give you, and vice versa. And
Mm,
then
mm,
universe,
mm.
the creator, God saw, no more.
Mm.
This isn't going to serve either of your highest goods anymore.
Right.
So breakups are really not a loss. They are a gain of so many things. And one thing I've noticed is that sometimes when separations happen like dramatically in a way like that, like COVID happened and now you guys are really separated, and like when they happen that way, it's really the universe being like, this is done and complete. Now go and literally digest everything you received from this relationship, receive it, become someone newer, better, reflect on what your shadows were that this was reflecting so that you can become even bigger and better. And when we see breakups as that, we're like, wait, I just gained so much. Yeah, you did. And it's like, yeah, it is going to hurt too, because we build bonds with people, and that's a beautiful part of this human experience. And so
Yeah.
allow yourself to also sit with the pain. Do not be like, screw this, I'm over it. No, be with the pain for as long as it's present, because that pain is also the compass to the breakthroughs and through the messages. But understand, every single breakup is actually giving you so much. You're not losing anything.
Mm,
That's just
mm.
a perspective we're having.
Exactly. And I think this is also important to note how important this mindset in your life in general
Hmm.
is to have.
Yeah.
So, and relationships can teach us a lot about, the gap or the gain mindset.
Yeah. Yes.
If you have that gap mindset, you're going to see everything as half empty.
Yeah.
If a something happens in your business and it doesn't quite go the way that you want it to go, you're going to see the gap. You're
Yeah.
going to be like, this is maybe not meant for me. How am I supposed to do this? I'm the victim, right?
Yeah.
But if you see everything from the gain, and again, relationships is where we can practice this mindset as
Ye-
well. Like, what did I
Absolutely.
receive? What did I receive? And, I also, so I think, yeah, it's a really good practice for us when it comes to, you know, lack and lack and abundance,
Yeah,
right?
no, you're so right.
How
Like,
we
this is
see
how
things.
relationships are prepping us for our life, literally. And it is like,
Mhm.
and I say this because I hope that people who were scared to get into relationships, again, some people don't even like having friendships. Like, how many women do we know that resist having friendships with other women because they've been quote unquote screwed over by women? So then they have a lot of guy friends. And,
Right.
and it's like, no, but if we view those friendship breakups as a way to teach us our own things, so then we gain so much from it, you're not afraid to go jump in and receive those friendships or relationships or partnerships
Mm.
that we're actually looking for. So it's like, you guys, allow yourselves to jump back in, allow yourselves to experience again. People are so afraid of getting hurt, but I
Mm.
think the hurt is when we don't know how to navigate through what's coming up,
Right.
to receive the goodness from it, to realize that a loss is actually a gain. And
Right.
when we don't
Mm.
see that, when we see a loss as a loss, then we feel empty, then we feel sad, then we feel hopeless, then we go into defend and protect mode. So let me keep
Gosh.
everything good out of my life to protect myself from this. But all along, it's like you're feeling very terrible through this. And if you're feeling very terrible, it's your body literally signaling to you, this is not the truth. I did not come here to
Mm.
live in feeling terrible. I did not come here to
Mm.
live in
Mm.
this fight or flight, defend and protect myself mode all.
Yeah. Yeah. And relationships, as we said at the beginning, it's such like an important pillar in our lives. And let's
Hmm.
like really understand why we are social animals. We
Yeah.
need to be in community. We
Yes.
need to be in connection with other people. And so if you are so sort of in that gap mindset and in that hurt and that defensive and protective mode because of experiences that you've had before. And people will often consciously talk about these experiences. Like you said, girls have never liked me, so I'm just like friends with guys. When actually you're holding yourself back from really like stepping into beautiful communities and connections and
Hmm.
opening up other sort of portals of your soul in this connection with other people, And so, really, if you do, I think this is a good practice for anybody that's listening. If you do have any sort of limiting stories when it comes to relationships, whether that be romantic, business, friendships, really like sit with yourself, sit with yourself and ask yourself rather than looking at this situation created this outcome in my life, how can you look at it from the perspective, what did I learn about myself
Yeah.
in that space? Or what did that mirror to me? And maybe challenge yourself to, you know, go the opposite way or something. Um, but I also think as well, when it comes to breakups, I've been thinking about this a lot recently, but I actually think it's a frequency thing. I think that, when there is a breakup, again, whether that is a friendship or a partner or whatever, it's almost like you're going on to different timelines. You're
Yes,
going on to different frequencies.
I
And
agree.
that's often why we never bump into exes. I've
Yeah.
literally never bumped into exes, you know? And I almost think it's because I'm just on a different timeline,
Yeah.
And it's not to say one timeline is better than the other, but it's perfect for you. And that's why it happened.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point that you're bringing up, and such a valid point because, again, as we're all here to evolve, we want to elevate in our timelines and the timeline that we're on. And sometimes certain people in our lives are not going to support us or be able to energetically be on that timeline with us. And so it's like their purpose for being in our lives has now ended because you're being pushed into a new timeline. And it doesn't make that person wrong or bad or anything like that. It's just their path of what is either destined for them or what they are choosing through their free will is not aligning to your highest timeline right now. Sometimes two
Mm-hmm.
people's highest timelines don't go hand in hand.
Yeah, it's like,
And for a certain period of time, it did, and it served its purpose and it served as
mm,
so much growth for you. But then your highest timelines are very different. And
mm,
sometimes some people will be like, well, that partner of mine is not in their highest timeline and they're going down another timeline. Okay, but that's still the best timeline for them, but it doesn't serve you anymore. So there's an element of protection when these people are taken out of your life. So let's let's receive goodness from these things. I don't know why people deemed breakups as bad just because we feel sad. It's not a bad thing. It's
yeah.
actually a very good thing. And I think when we change our perspective towards breakups, we can really begin to receive differently from it. Like it, you know what it's like, Abby? I
Mm,
remember when my dad passed away. It's been almost 2 years.
mhm,
And as I was grieving the loss and going through that, I went to this one healer and she worked on just like the physical body. And she stopped halfway working on me because she felt that I was holding on to grief in a certain part of my body. And she's like, let's talk. And I was like, let's. She goes, I know your dad just passed away, and so you're grieving this. And I said, yes, of course. And she goes, grieve, take your time to grieve. But there's something, there's a perspective you're holding on to that's not serving you. And I was like,
mm,
what's that? And she's like, you're seeing his passing as a loss versus seeing his
wow.
passing as a gain. And I
Wow.
never recognized to see this in like losing someone. And losing my dad
Mm,
was the first time I had lost someone so close to me.
mm,
And she really helped me to remember a loss is never a loss. And I'm like, I've worked with people that have lost loved ones all the time. And I know it's like we could view them as we lost them in the physical form,
mm,
or we could view it as we gained them in the spiritual form, which
wow.
is the
Mm,
purest form of them.
mm,
And when I recognized that, it all of a sudden it was like this thing that I knew, but she picked that up in what my grief was bringing up for me. Because sometimes we will logically know things, but when we're in grief, when we're hurting, like the
yeah.
pain takes over and the logical mind takes over. And she so beautifully reminded me that I didn't actually lose anything. Like,
Mm,
did I
mm,
lose the physical father that was here? Yeah, sure, that's very
mm,
real, and I could grieve that, and it's very
mm,
valid to grieve that and then be done with it. But I actually gained the purest form of my father through his passing. And I gained a
wow.
beautiful relationship with him through his passing because he didn't have the limitations of the physical body on him anymore.
Mm,
And so we can really
wow.
see losses are never actually losses. It's the way we choose to view
Mm.
them that could be a loss or a gain.
That's so beautiful, and I think that is just like a beautiful thing for people to hear because I mean that is like the ultimate grief, right? Like, losing someone, in to death, them passing away. But actually thinking about it like that, even applying this same principle that we are talking about that comes up with breakups, that gain mindset in the face of death, I think that's actually quite comforting
Yeah,
to hear,
yeah.
you know? Wow. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
powerful.
And I think sometimes it's so normal for all of us as we go through any type of loss to initially
Mm,
feel and think we lost something. And it's a very healthy thing to feel too. So I'm not telling anyone not to feel that. Absolutely feel it. You have to, you get to. It's
mhm,
actually a
mhm.
privilege to be able to feel that very deeply.
Yeah.
So please do. And through that, then start to invite the concept in for you. Wait a second.
Mm,
God
mm,
is so good. God
mm,
never removes something from my life to leave me empty. This is not a loss. What is the gain in this that I'm not seeing? And
mm,
then the
mhm.
healing process starts to become through that lens of what is my gain?
Right.
Because
Yeah.
truth be
So
told, that friendship breakup, it also hurt me. And I felt like
yeah.
I lost one of the closest friends. But then as I sat with
Mm.
it and I digested it and I let myself be hurt, I realized, wait a second. What if God took away one to bring in three that are actually
Yeah.
so much more aligned to my highest timeline? And when I said that
Mm.
to myself, it felt so good in my body. I'm like, thank you, God,
Mm.
that's the truth. And that's the truth that I
Yeah.
get to move forward with.
It's so true because it is like it's energetically you're creating space,
Yeah,
you
exactly.
know? And again, it's like that frequency thing, you know? It's like you're moving into a different timeline. And you know why you hear people talking about this all the time? You will hear it from your clients. I hear it from my clients also. When people enter into their own awakening, they lose a lot of friends.
Yeah,
You know, they will
yeah.
talk about, "Oh, but you know, I've never felt more connected to myself, but also lonely because all of the people that were around me, they don't get me anymore."
Mhm.
You know, and I think that is something important to talk about when it comes to the awakening process and when you are stepping deeper into your authentic self and knowing
Yeah.
yourself and not being afraid to be who you are.
Hmm.
It is almost like you start creating space, you know, for people who
Absolutely.
align with that.
I think every single person who has gone through an awakening and continues to evolve and grow in their life will see that, oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I did lose a lot of friends, or even my relationship to my family really changed. I felt like I didn't have as much in common with them. And I think what that reflects to us is exactly what you're saying of it's creating room and space to call in these elevated types of friendships and relationships, but also it's creating space for you to elevate. Because if you are going to continuously be in relationship with these people who don't match your more evolved self, it doesn't allow you to grow and evolve. So it's also creating
Right.
space for you to evolve in your own way.
Mm,
And
mm,
so we have these quote unquote losses and separations literally to create room for things that are actually going to be in alignment to us and a reflection of us so that we can continue to
mm.
grow. I think when we
Yeah.
realize we're here to grow, we're not here to stay stagnant. We are here to grow and continuously evolve until we take our very last breath on this earth.
Mm,
Then we can recognize and we could start to see everything that is happening always for our growth. And that's what it is. And people who are in our lives that are no longer going to support our growth will be taken out one way or another.
mm, mm.
And that's where we get to just
Exactly.
celebrate that. And this is where it's like, yeah, it has to do with us. It has to do with the relationship with ourselves. All of this has to do with the relationship with ourselves. It has to do with our self love, our self confidence, our self esteem, our authenticity, our being embodied in ourselves. Being embodied isn't about only going and doing somatic movement and dressing how you like to dress to be embodied. It's a part of it, but being
Mhm.
embodied is really seeing all the nooks and crannies of yourself and giving yourself so much permission to express
Permission.
them, to see them, to be with them, and then allow them to grow.
Hmm.
And
And it's
so we
kind of
want
like, I think,
people, I was going to
sorry.
say, we want people in our life that give us room and permission to grow as well.
Yeah. And so it reflects our standards,
Yes,
actually. I think the relationships that we have, it reflects the standards that we set for ourselves.
absolutely.
And, you know, again, it's so easy for us to stay in connections with people because it's uncomfortable to change. It's uncomfortable to communicate. It's uncomfortable, you know, what I find in a lot of like the friendships, the really great friendships that I have in my life, including with you, if there's ever something that comes up for me and I communicate it and they open their arms wide and it's like, you know, that's when you know that's like your ride or die, you know, in
Yeah.
life. It's kind of those are the people that are like, well, yeah, I'm coming with you,
Yeah.
or the people that celebrate you, the people
Yeah.
that are there for you when you're in pain, those people that are there through all of it, you know? But I think sometimes there can be, we get to a point in certain relationships and it's just like you're just no longer vibing. This is how, that's when you're not on that same frequency. You're
Yeah.
on different frequencies. Sometimes it might come back around, but also we don't have to hold our grip onto
Right.
things
Right.
so tightly. It's relationships, and the breakdown of relationships is also a lesson of letting go as well. A lesson of surrendering and trusting the tides of your life, the changes, the new phases that are going to come in your life. And you've got to withhold your standards in that. So, and what does that mean to withhold your standards? It's either communicating them and people rising up with you, or communicating with them and nothing changing and you choosing yourself, you know?
That is so beautifully said, Abby. I love everything about what you said. And I want to piggyback off of something you said is that when you communicate your standards and the people that choose you, who are your quote unquote like ride or dies, doesn't it feel so good when you have people like that in your life and you feel great and you feel so big and you feel so grand? It's like, you see, those are the types of people God intended for us to have in our lives, because with those types of people in our life, we grow in love, we grow in excitement, we grow in authenticity. Those are the people you're meant to have in your closest circle, from friends to business to romantic partners. That we're not meant to settle for less than that, because we are always meant to grow in these beautiful ways. And when we have really good people in our life, we grow, which we're going to do one way or another, but then we grow in fun, we grow in joy, we grow in support, we grow in community, and we feel so held in all of these different seasons of our lives. And that feels beautiful. And that allows us to grow even more. Those, let's say, I don't want to say bad relationships, but the relationships that really are not serving us, that we are holding on to because we don't want to
Right.
lose something. Those
Mm-hmm.
relationships, it's like you're trying to grow and you're trying to, let's say, climb up a mountain, but you're holding 100-pound rock on you. It's like you're trying to grow in life, but you have this unnecessary weight on you. When you allow yourself to release these things, and like you said, hold your standard in life, then you will climb that mountain. You will grow and evolve, but you'll do it with so much more ease, so much more support. So, like, and that's what life gets to be. So many people are looking to how they get to make life feel better. Well, here's one of the ways. Stop accepting lower standards in your own life, and especially in relationships.
Yeah.
Relationships are people in our lives that we interact with majority of our time. And so we get to really pay attention to the frequency that's there in these relationships. And if something gets taken away, let it.
Mhm. It's
Room for
kind of
better.
like, I mean, everything comes back to energy,
Mm-hmm.
doesn't it? Because if
Always.
you're in a relationship that is heavy, that is, weighing you down, that is, your energy is going to focus there. We've all been there when you're in a relationship or whatever, and it's just on your mind constantly.
Yeah.
You're in, and it brings your energy down
It doesn't
because
allow you
then
to
you're
fly.
exactly, then you're going into your day with it written on your face.
Mm-hmm.
Even in terms of, I always think it's so interesting that the relationship that I had when I was like 25, and I just like literally my skin, so I would get like cold sores on my mouth, and they would go away and they would come back a week later. I'm not kidding. And it was like that for like 4 months up until the end of this, relationship. And I remember someone saying to me, "Are you stressed out about anything? Is anything worrying you?" And I was like, "No, everything's great." Like,
Yeah.
but I
Sometimes we don't
knew,
realize it,
yeah,
but the
I knew
universe then,
within.
Yeah, but then the universe coordinates these things to create the separation. And then, if we have the courage and we give ourselves permission to go within, that's when
Mm,
you'll see, wow, I think I always knew this all along. I just didn't want to admit that I knew this is what was going on.
mm, mm.
And it's a very
Uh,
humanly thing of us. But I think the greatest gist of this episode is
right.
that losses always equal gains.
Uh,
I'll share
mm,
one last thing before we wrap up. I was with a client a couple weeks ago, and she had recently started dating this new person that felt, she's done so much work on herself. And so this relationship felt like the best one she's ever called in. He really treats her with respect and he sees her, and she really gets to be feminine around him and with him. And so she was so excited for this experience. And so, of course, when people get into new relationships, they always, Sima, is this the one? Like, what's my counsel saying? Is this the one? Typically speaking, counsel's not going to give you that answer this early on, unless it's like really like a no, get away from this.
mm,
But generally speaking, your counsel's not going to give you the answer because the experience of it is the most important thing for you. And what you experience through this, the lessons you gain from this is the most important thing. And then if they're meant to be the one, they will be. And if they're not meant to, they won't be. So I shared that with her and I said, look, is this not the first time that you're experiencing this type of relationship with a man? And she goes, yes. And I'm like, so let's just say this were to break up for one reason or another. Wouldn't you still be gaining something from this? Because you
mm,
just gained this experience through this man. And she's
mm,
like, yeah. And I'm like, so sit with the experience, sit with what you're receiving. If this
mhm,
is not meant to be the one, then it won't be. And if it is, then it will be.
mm,
And so that gave her so much peace because when we get into new relationships, we're all like, oh, is he the one? Is it it? And we all get
mm.
nervous like that. And then
Yeah.
we get nervous to get attached or really allow ourselves to like fall
Mm,
for this
mm,
person because we're
mm.
like, well, what if he's not it? And then I lose him.
Protection mode.
Exactly. And that's when I was
Mm,
like, no, let yourself be in it. Let yourself
mm,
experience this
mm,
version of you because if what's the worst thing that could happen? You break up. If that happens,
mm.
you're not losing anything. You're gaining the experience, and you lost someone that wasn't meant to be the person that was meant to hold you and maintain this. He was just meant to be like a stork and deliver something to you.
The activation,
Yeah.
like
So,
to
like, let
initiate.
yourself fall in it. Be in
I
it. It's
love that.
okay.
And this is, it's even you go on one date with someone, sometimes actually all the time,
Yes,
there is some sort of activation.
I
It
agree.
might be something you're learning about yourself and what you don't want. It might be something you're learning about yourself and you do want. It's just, and again, this is what we've been saying in this episode as well is don't, we're talking about the pain of breakups. Don't bypass it. Actually, when you feel it, when you're in it, that is when you transmute that into the gain.
Yeah, the discomfort is where it comes from.
Yes.
And also, don't hold yourself back from these experiences
Mm-hmm.
because you don't want to get hurt. You're actually
Yeah.
hurting yourself so much by not allowing yourself to be in these experiences.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Of course, like, discernment, but
Discernment plus.
discernment plus, if it feels good, obviously, like let yourself
Yeah.
be in the
Let
experience.
yourself be in the experience. It's exactly the experience you need in this moment. So let yourself
Yeah.
do it. People are always looking for, is this right? Is this wrong? I'm like, does it feel right for you? And they say yes. I'm like,
Yeah.
so be in it because
So
it's
it's
the
right.
perfect experience for you right now. So let yourself be in
Mm.
the experiences. Do not worry about loss. Every perceived loss is actually an opportunity to gain so much more.
Mm.
Every perceived loss.
Yeah. And so, a question I will wrap this up on, something you guys listening to this episode can think about. What is the last relationship that you had or the last connection that you were faced with? What was your gain? What was your gain in that connection? It might have been someone you bumped into on the street, I don't know, but
Yeah.
what was your gain?
Oh,
And
that's
that's
so
something that you
beautiful.
can take with you for the rest of your day and
It's
life.
That's a beautiful reflection.
Mm.
Also, I think we're ready to announce to everyone to get them excited. So many of you have asked how you could work with Abby and I together. So, what we have decided, and we are working on it, and it will launch in January, a group coaching program where you'll have both of us as your coaches in a container for 5 months. So keep your eyes out for that. But you guys asked and we are delivering. So that is absolutely something we're doing. And you'll get to work with us in a small group. So we'll be able to support all of you and hear from you, but you'll get both of us at one time.
Oh my gosh. Like, it is insane what we're actually creating, and I cannot wait to, yeah,
Yeah.
to share this with
Yes.
everybody.
It's going to be so
So
good.
stay tuned for that.
Stay tuned for that. We hope you all enjoyed today's episode. As always, if you have questions for us, please reach out to us. If there are topics that you would like for us to talk about on the podcast, please let us know. We are always open to that. And we will speak to you all next week.
Bye.